at Instrument here in Portland. She's worked at Rumors, Ace Atelier, Scout Books, and as a freelancer on projects for NASA. Crazy. Air Design Week Portland, Verso Books, Open Engagement, a Democratic candidate for the House. Open Signal, live in Las Vegas. We'll hear about that today. Clif Bar, High Desert Test Sites, Bands, the David Lynch Foundation, Intercom, and finally her mother. She graduated from University of North Carolina at Greensboro with degrees in design and women's and gender STEM. You can ask Taryn about feminism and labor, Mojave Desert, business school, and growing tomatoes. So we'll start clapping for Taryn.
Thanks, everybody. Thank you, Sean and Walton, so much for having me. I've never given a talk ever before, so this is scary, but I feel like this is a good amount of people. The thing about these talks is like when you start making them, you realize like talking about your like life path is like actually the easiest thing to do. So that's what we're gonna do. No big deal. Talking about schoolwork and some ideas. Heckling is allowed. Questions are allowed. Just if you want to stop me anywhere. Good. This is a poster. So just to give you from 29 Palms, California, which is near Joshua Tree, maybe where you've been on vacation or like want to go on vacation sometime. It's this little rectangle floating in the center is the RV that my family lived in when I was born. That's just like kind of, there's a lot of things like sitting out rotting in the desert, but there it is, like Google Maps. 29 Palms is home to one of the largest military bases in the United States. They have a fabricated Middle Eastern village where they go to Iraq, which is fucked up and weird. This is totally not relevant, but just something interesting about that place. It's also the home of Ace. Has anyone heard of that? Yeah, Andrea Zattel's kind of experimental art practice and like living minimalism. I don't know. I show this stuff because I think it's like a really interesting, beautiful place. And I had a lot of great photos of it. I spent some of my youth and tried to play basketball, but was really bad, even though I was really tall. And eventually ended up doing like high school stuff in North Carolina on the beach. So there's very excellent surface. So where I met my boyfriend who's here, Zach. He's extra allowed to heckle. Just a heads up. So like a couple, like I went to a school and then took a year off, but I eventually ended up at a school called North Carolina at Greensboro, which is like totally weird, small school no one's heard of. I pretty much just went there because my friends were all going there, and it was like a UN really had sports. It was basically like the UNC, like the state school that you could go to be like for an arty kid. They had theater and music and design. This is our art building, was really fancy. When I went to school, I like knew that Lizzie and Charles just walking around. I went to school knowing I wanted to study graphic design and web stuff because I'd made a lot of fan websites when I was like a kid growing up on the Insta. But also I was like very interested in like feminism and like book covers and like all this stuff that I was kind of like, oh yeah, this means I should like make books. So there was like kind of a good clear sense of like, I don't know, what I wanted to do and who I wanted to be. And there's some weird slides coming up. And the side here is like, we feel like we're having like a 70s revival now. I feel like that was also really big in the early 2000s. Like the Strokes were getting really big, and there was like American Apparel stuff everywhere. Like aesthetically, this stuff felt like so cool to me then, even though now we're like a million times. Here's a slide about how embarrassing it was to be a person in the early 2000s. Maybe you guys remember. Some things about it. I definitely had to watch The Matrix on the first day of college in philosophy class to like get a foundation. School, went to a lot of dance parties. I lucked into something that I'm calling a generalist design education. So I wanted out of school. I was just kind of like, I'll study design, I'll go in state. I didn't really like think very much about, you know, like what I wanted out of the program, but I landed somewhere like super, super great. It was an art school that had a lot of designers as professors. They were like designers who had interesting practices that were kind of like arts and design, where they had done a lot of design work and then kind of moved into some more kind of like tech and design arts practices, which I think is really interesting. So I think like, this is a picture of me eating Jimmy John's in the printmaking room. What I was going to talk about. It was like very much like we learned about a lot of things in equal weight. So we learned how to make websites, design, we did tons of work like in motion graphics, After Effects. We learned how to make typefaces. We totally like made tons of books, game photography, like just kind of like everything, like all the tools were just there. And it was very much like not a school where we had any sense of like what the market for design would be outside of school. Like I don't even know anybody at which school who had an internship or got a design job out of school. We were just kind of all there just like playing around, which like now just feels so weird. But I think it's that way in a lot of small cities and small towns, right? There's this like merging of art and design. This is meeting of some Jimmy John's. Another thing that was really cool about my school is we had this like amazing art and literature magazine that had been published for, it was started in 1897. So like, you know, over 110 years. Budget, when I was in school, the budget for printing and like paying people to work on this magazine was $40,000 a year, which is insane. So I basically, we basically were like, we're just gonna do this the whole time we're in school. So I started as a designer and then production, and then like eventually became the editor. It was like art stuff and poetry stuff, so we all just kind of like learned. I don't know, that way you get people to come in and like make work for a thing, promote it, put on events, also design it, like do the production stuff. It was kind of this like awesome lesson in things. We also had just like this amazing archive of this weird like vernacular kind of like, not necessarily good, all these rad magazines from literally hundreds of years, like 100 of years in our little office, like cubicle in the student building. I say this like, this stuff's interesting to me, just like, I didn't like go to school like with modernists or like understand like had all this good stuff around. Some from the 70s that are so cool. The really weird stuff's coming up. Hot. Extremely hot. Beautiful. Okay, this is the really wild 70s small school art magazine. Whoa! I'm just showing you this. I think like were the ones that I made, which were like very tweet. Another really cool thing about my school is that I social practice with this guy named Lee Walton. Has anyone met Lee? Yeah, Sean? So Lee is a social practice artist. He's friends with Harold Fletcher. Maybe you guys know. This is kind of like how I started to like learn about, I was like, what is PSU and what's this like whole world of things of art and like definitely not design, but like kind of interesting because it's interactive. Do you guys like do very much social practice stuff in the design thing? No, some like publications and stuff. Anyway, but this like work, so Lee's work is a little performative, but it's like all about, you know, engaging the audience in something. So this, and his stuff's also very art. So he would kind of stage these performances in public spaces and like, I don't know, kind of just play with ideas about what we like expect to find and how we think about. So yeah, he just like has this guy eating a sandwich just at this time, you know, every day. But I think what like is that idea of like it's interactive. Like, what does that mean? How can we like don't know, learn stuff from that space? What does the like person engaging with it expect, thoughtful and true, you know, to what they're hoping to find? And it was like conceptual. You know, there's like ties to like 70s conceptual art, Fluxus stuff, maybe more 60s, 70s. Sean knows what I'm talking about. The stuff that feels like, when I look back, very important to like design work, but also art direction. It's like, what is like the big idea that we're trying to get there? Like, I think that's stuff that feels like, this feels like it helped me be a strong thinker in that area. Another Lee project, he did a free hot dog stand in a park, but then like the hot dog paper had like some description of like a weird event happening in another side of the park. So there'd be all these like weird theatrical things happening, and you'd like not know if they were real life or not unless you got a hot dog. They were not real. Weird slide. This is how much my college cost. Just opening the door in the Q&A, we can talk about money. If anyone wants to talk about money questions. Interest is a biatch. So some questions that I like to think about when I think back about my education is like, what is design? Things that are kind of art practices and interactive design all the time. Design and art are like a problematic group thing that happen together a lot. You need to experience this and think about it. Show of hands. 2 hands. I like, and I'm curious about like what that kind of practice means to it being a designer. But I think like the kind of place that I'm a creative culture, so like don't think I'm an artist ever, but I like love art and think about that as like, you know, an interesting space. A lot of slides with like just lots of text in them. We're gonna make our way through it. When I got out of school, I never had like a moment where I was like, here's what I want to do. I want to work in an agency, or like I need to like make music videos. Or I was very much like, I could like go get an MFA, or I could like a coffee shop. Like there was kind of no world of like, or no like sense of like what my career path could be. So I just started to like follow things that I was like truly obsessed, like looking at people's websites like every day and like seeing when they had jobs posted. Which is for real. First place that I became obsessed with when after Zach and I decided to move to Portland was this place called Pinball Publishing, which you guys maybe know as Scout Books. Show up from our applause. Yeah. Does anyone like remember when they were just pinball? They had like really radical spot color printing and like did a lot of cool stuff. They also published like a literary magazine. I was like obsessed with them forever. There, stalked them until I basically could apply for a job and they would let me work there. I was like, I know how to make a magazine and like print stuff. But this place is amazing because it's like, it's in-house. Thank you, Savannah, for bringing this up. This idea of like working in the place that like is the place, right? You're not like serving other clients. We produce jobs, but there was like a really amazing like commitment to doing the best work all the time, and like a really genuine like love for the materials and respect for like sustainability. Like this place is they're the best people ever. They also gave surprise, which is a very handy trick anyone should use if they're ever an employer. Just give people a surprise raise, even if it's a little tiny one. It's like the nicest thing you can do. Yeah, so they're the best people ever. After a while, I was like kind of, you know, in this world of like doing some product marketing stuff, taking photos, and then I was like, I want to be like a real designer for real. And I was really for Atelier Ace, the in-house design studio at Ace Hotel. So, are you guys all familiar with Ace Hotel? Yeah, okay. The Portland one is like so small that it's hard to imagine like what the other ones in New York and LA have events all the time. They're like these huge cool things. They're making like clothes. They're doing all kinds of advertising campaigns. It's like a real. And this was like a really amazing, like chaotic, creative workplace. It's called Atelier, and they like kind of that the studio would be like the Eames office. It's definitely not, but it was like there was design and architecture and interiors all like happening, which was pretty amazing and pretty amazing to think about like experience on a level like different from like an art context, right? So hotels have brand obviously that you know touches kind of everything, but there's also like real tactile materials. There's wayfinding and signage. There's events that need to have like branding and collateral. It's kind of just like every office, which is pretty amazing. And we did some like web projects. We did like a game with vans where you had to like identify skateboard tricks by sound. That was really fun. I don't have any of that. I don't have the styles. But just like, I don't know. I call it a culture because it really was like pretty gnarly at times, but fun and like definitely rich and full of ideas. So following that trail of obsession, I had like maybe an obsession with working. Maybe I was like, I just want to work all the time, so I started freelancing. A disaster. Talk about it later if you guys want to, but it did bring me a lot of good stress accounting, which I feel like I got. Anyway, so after freelancing, I started working at a studio called Rumors. You guys know about Rumors? You should look them up. Chloe knows. It's like an amazing place, run by a man named Andy Pressman, who's the best. Editorial and interactive projects, mostly for cultural organizations. So lots of websites and brand. Really small. It's like 5 people. Actually, Rumors, by the way. This is whatever. But they just like really cultivate like a lot of deep care and attention to the writing, and it's like very conceptually strong. Everything's like really beautiful. They design book covers. Like it's just like the dreamiest place ever. I decided to leave only because I was like feeling like this craving to work on bigger things. Like I'd always been in these small groups, and I was also craving more like leadership stuff, which I feel like is like a place where I want to grow and a place where I want to like, I don't know. It's like so now I work at Instrument, which is really awesome too. Lots of really amazing people, and I think that transition from like kind of in-house agency has been like super illuminating for me. On the one hand, illuminating, I'm scared of agencies for I work at one, I'm like, oh, everyone here is really smart and good, and they've been doing this since they were like really young, and I was like so scrappy for so long, and then I'm sort of like clawing to catch up, but it's all good. Some things I'm just thinking about work. I love people so much. That's like the biggest thing I've like learned about like how I need to do good work and being around people. I think that designers work through and by other people, and I think that as a designer, I focus more than my own, for better or for worse. I see my role in design as being useful to other people. I think about this a lot. Some of the times it's like, and me wondering if I'm just being like codependent, but like truly it's like being useful to other people feels really good to me. That's why I like this work. Design as a way to practice working with ideas and people that I love. And I've learned that I can't do good work without the support of other people. My freelance crash, like when I'm alone, I like don't have people to like bounce things off of. I like I just need some people around. No big deal. There's this guy named Norman Potter. Has anyone heard of him or read his book? He's a cabinet maker from Britain, and he wrote a really good book called What is a Designer in the late 60s. That's really good idea that some designers are culture diffusers, people who do confident work effectively over a broad field, usually from a stable background of dispersed interests. So I was like, oh yeah, that's totally like the way I feel about who I am as a designer. Like competent. It's great. It's good to be like insightful and practical. Those are things that are fine. He like has another idea of a designer, which is like the visionary. That is like the person who's actually science and stuff, right? The person who like gets us all inspired and gets us to like want to make really beautiful stuff. But I feel very much for good people, like all good. Okay, now we're gonna look at some work. These are my transition slides. I didn't practice this section. So the past year I've been working on, I started when I was freelancing, it's been kind of like going on forever. A brand of a motel in Pioneertown, California, which is outside Joshua Tree, which is like, it basically is like kind of like a strip of land, kind of looks like if someone made like a and then it just kind of started falling apart. And then like some like in LA moved in and were like trying to make it cool. It was like a film set town, as you can see in this image. This is like a whole team. Fake Western towns in California where people used to shoot like TV shows and movies. It's one of those towns, but it's just like it's very like very weird. Everyone should go. Happy Harriet venue that has like good bands. Everyone should go to the desert. This is the fun of this talk. So we basically just like worked on identity system for them, including signage, lots of logos and marks, website, cards, a big newspaper, and maybe that's all we'll look at. Huge, massive project. We're talking to them about everything from the very beginning. Art directing all of their photography, like helping them write messaging for their website, just like, I don't know, totally only was able to do that because I worked at a hotel place before. And they were like, we trust you. They like trusted you because of this. But so let's talk about some other hotel stuff. I work at Ace. It's an interesting kind of like aesthetic place because it's very like nostalgic. Everything that Ace does is trying to be like a way that I think maybe it was like not good for the way that I work because I feel like I'm kind of always harking back to this like, I don't know, vintage, pastiche kind of thing. But some good things that I learned about it were like how to think about like cultural context. Like for the Ace Hotel in New Orleans had to be really different than the things we made for the Ace Hotel in New York, and they had different considerations in the way we like, introduce us, and like there's just like so much context around I don't know, just like the space and the identity of the place. It's kind of like branding because the cities were so different. Another really good thing I learned there, by the way, these are marketing flyers. Like just like research type all the time. We like got to pick new typefaces for things as part of like a brand ID for new hotels, but also just like made cool tons of required like researching typefaces from specific places or eras. That was really fun, and like I feel like I learned sometimes did like event takeover parties where we got to design really fun graphics. I like love this stupid calendar. This was like a collaboration with an artist for a Coachella party. Whatever. The weird stuff we do, we poured paint on some signs. The time at Ace, I made some shoes that a famous person wore. Gigi Hadid. Do you know who that is?
Yeah.
We also have cards and evacuation signage. It's really fun. Maybe I'm linking some new hotels here. Add more. I did. A few years ago, I also worked on some stuff for Design Week Portland. Their main stage. Didn't even go to that. Wasn't even Travis over there. I worked on a lot of patterns and stuff using. I don't think anything I did looked good, but this is a really good photo. I did help spec out this sign. Another weird project that I worked on is like this interactive, it is interactive because it's an app. It's an app adventure. The adventure then takes you into an imaginary world that's called Cheyenne. Cheyenne, it's like Chicago, but it overlays Zion National Park in your phone. It's very confusing and weird. I worked on this with roomers in a studio called Map Design Lab and a gentleman named Thomas Wester. Kind of create this like walking game, so you kind of like download these cool clues, and then when you get to a space, you kind of enter into this AR VR experience, and then you can save the things to your trail book. You guys can look this up later if you want to know what it is. All that stuff is that. Okay, now we're getting into like a lot of slides where there's a lot of text. I feel like I'm in kind of a low valuing of myself moment in my career. The world is sad. I feel like I'm also like putting together this talk. I realized some things about just like my work, my perspective, maybe some lessons. I'm a very like critical and hard to please person, and I've like starting to see how that like affects the way I like archive and think about my work. Like putting this together, I was like, oh yeah, I'm not impressed by any of my work that I've done, so I don't like put the care into like, you know, like saving it to present later. I'm just like, oh. I like totally love it when I'm doing it, but I'm like very often not like, I don't know, not easily impressed by myself, and like tend to dwell on kind of like, this is not good. You guys shouldn't do that. You should be proud of yourself. I feel like I'm really limited by not being good at writing or like not having a writing practice. It's really stressing me out a lot lately. I feel like design is hard. I feel like I'm continually trying to understand how to pair elusive. And I think it's also like maybe not how like client work always works. Like you're kind of always like fulfilling other. I don't know. It feels like there's a lot of talking about concepts that are not like. I don't know. I feel like I'm faking it a lot. I don't know how to cultivate unproductive time. I always want to work. I don't leave a lot of room for play. Maybe this is why I'm a bad writer. I organized my internet. All my bookmarks are crazy. I still want to have that like outline of all the things that I like. I feel like I should have some kind of this idea of like personal work. Like, what does that mean? It's like also like, am I thinking about the designer and like doesn't have to be that person too when I'm totally not? Whatever. Thinking about what a practice is, thinking about what a methodology is, about what the F and aesthetic is. Some people are so good at this. Anyway, can you have like a practice that is all that stuff? We're going through more text slides. Design is labor, design is capitalism. I think a lot about this design workflow. I'm going to go off on a tangent now. Okay, so my favorite like capitalism is for food. So if you imagine like back in the day, it would take so long for a chicken to like mature, and then you chicken. The capitalist makes the money, and then the chicken like goes away. You start over, you have a new chicken, right? Well, then hormones and stuff so that the chickens grow faster. So you have more cycles of chicken like growth and sales. So maybe you only have 2 chickens. Now you can have like 4 chickens that you make money off of, and you make the same amount of money. I think a lot about that in like design work, where we're like adding like that product, like what is the product and that cycle, and like what does it need to be kind of like things fast? Like, can we work really slowly? What does it mean? Could be like I don't know, a world where like we have some more control over what that all means. This is not even like just a big problem. It's a problem that like small studios do. Right? Like, what is the cycle of work, and how do you like make money off of it? Whatever. I've been feeling grateful that I'm like doing web stuff now because I find so much pleasure and value in designing for user experiences. It's so fun. It's so great to consider the user. I love having like tasks. I'm very excited about that right now. I'm also thinking about how aesthetic production has been disrupted by the internet. There's a really good essay by this person named Toby Shorin. Does anyone read Subpixel Space, this blog? Okay. Did you read this piece?
Which
The diminishing value of this, yeah. This idea that like the like world of visual culture wants to like take things that are on the edge, like just on the edge of design, things that are like just barely feeling edgy and cool, and like just sell it. And so we all are like in this world now where we're trying to like make things for that. And then also in this distributed network of the web, where like everyone is producing and sharing things at the same time, is disrupted, and like we're all kind of like learning about things differently, right? Like that idea that the 70s felt like it was coming back in the early 2000s, like it's always coming back to somebody because how and where we get our visual reference. You guys should read that piece. The blog is called Subpixel. It's really good. Okay. This idea that we should actively reclaim our future with our collective imaginations. Total tangent. Has anyone heard of a book called Emergent Strategy? Yes. That like the world that we live in, like it's basically like about fractals, right? The small space that we are should like be the place where we practice here, the relationships, the economies, all of that we like want to see in the bigger world. I don't know if I agree with this or like how hard it is, but I do like that idea of like being in your life and bringing your values into your decision making. Just grappling with what I'm thinking about. We have more text slides. I was going to read a passage from this book. By Pier Vittorio Aureli. It's published by Strelka. This is just something I want to put out there. Many people working in the field of architecture, art, and unpaid work security. I think this also is like young people too. Their lives are increasingly characterized by anxiety, anguish, frustration, and sometimes depression. Minded agenda that curators, architects, and artists eagerly endorse in their initiatives. We know that the field of creative industry is highly no mercy for those who refuse to stay in tune with it. And yet these creative workers have difficulty admitting this reality. And because it seems almost impossible for them to organize themselves within something like a union or a social organization that would protect them from exploitation. Okay, that's where I'm going to stop. We'll keep going. Another thing I'm thinking about, is this getting too tedious? You can skip. I like this idea of the designer as like just like the role that you are playing in a collaboration. It's useful a lot if anyone has like power control problems when you're collaborating with other people, which I do. Like just being like, and like I can think about designing this as much as I want, and like take it wherever I want to go. I'm thinking a lot about how to make current and future design generations more critical and inclusive. Since I'm like kind of a little bit more of a leadership person, I've started doing leadership training, which is really interesting because you basically have to like, I don't know, practice like thinking about how like what's important to you as a motivate and influence. Criticality and inclusivity are the things I want to influence. Skip the next slide, please. Okay, that's it. I will answer any questions. Thanks, everybody.